Conversations with Oraan. Very nice to have you on board.
I am so excited to be here. Oraan is my dream. It's a woman-led fintech company in Pakistan. So I'm more excited than anyone else to be here.
Thanks a lot. So I'm going to do a quick introduction for you, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit about yourself, and we're going to get into the questions. So Fatima Mazhar is an alumnus of Washington College and the University of Pittsburgh, and she's a Sloan Fellow from MIT. She's worked in leadership positions at a number of startups, including Careem and Keep Truckin'. At Careem, she rose from the position of fleet manager to general manager before becoming the head of expansion. In February 2021, she founded the Khan.pk and served as a startup CEO for 4 months. After stepping down from that position, she has now recently started working at COLABS and will soon join the team as an advising consultant. This is a great trajectory. There's so much interesting stuff I can't wait to get into, Fatma, with you. But before we do, just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a proud papa of 2 amazing nieces. I'm a proud mother to 6 horses.
Oh, wow.
And I play polo and I'm learning how to fly. Apart from that, I see myself as a tech enthusiast and a startup junkie. I hope
amazing. This is actually super cool and super exciting. Horses, 6 horses. Wow. I have 3 dogs and I can't imagine 6 horses.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so just to start off, you've had a solid upward trajectory starting with Careem, right? And moving on to becoming a general manager at Truckin'. What made you, how did you grow? How did that happen? What were you thinking when you built your career and how did that happen? And then to follow up on that is what made you switch to founding a business, the Khan.pk?
So loaded question, but I struggled a lot. And I did not know where I belonged. I started off my career in investment banking. I tried a couple of things and then eventually landed at Careem. What's interesting to know at Careem is when I got to Careem, I started off not only as a fleet manager, I started off in their call center because when I joined them, they had a pre-seed. And so they didn't have the money. So they said, we like you. Please come sit in our call center, take only driver calls. And they made me a promise. They said, as the company grows, and if you work hard, you will grow. And so this was my second experience in a startup. And the important thing to note over here is I joined the company because I met Magnus, saw his eyes light up as he was talking about his startup. And I kept looking at this guy and thinking, so passionate about work. Like you're forced to get up in the morning, come to this company, work. And I was like, I want to feel that way. And every single day at Careem, I felt that way. Mudassir, and you can ask him if you see him, used to say, I feel like you're more the owner of Careem than I feel me and Magnus are. It was a fun ride. So Careem is where I feel like my career really took off because I woke up excited and I didn't want to leave. Mudassir had to send me home a bunch of times, like go home, rest. And then I went to
startup owner's dream come true.
Yes, I think so. But also I was a bit difficult as well. I wasn't easy because I felt like I owned the place, and a lot of startup people that join at that early stage feel that way. So Careem is where I learned that tech and operations is what I like to do, because when I was expanding for Careem, I was going to different cities, setting up Careem, training the people, and then moving on to the next city. So in a way, I feel like I was already an entrepreneur. And you see how many entrepreneurs have come out of Careem, right? It is something that is inbuilt into you. They actually give you so much ownership that you feel like you can conquer the world. So I was launching new businesses for them. And then I went to MIT to get my MBA because I burned out. There's a burnout that happens. And after that, I went to Keep Truckin' because I wanted to come back to Pakistan. And I wanted to work in Pakistan. And this was an opportunity. And Keep Truckin' is a great company. I've not seen any other company take care of their employees like Keep Truckin' does. And really like make them grow and stuff. So working with them was amazing.
Sounds like 2 very different experiences, actually.
Very, very different. I got the head of the department role. The head of the country role, and it was a really big role. But I did realize that I am the kind of person that likes to have constant excitement. And when you're the head of the country, it's pretty routine, and it's pretty like You sit in meetings and you tell people what to do, but you don't get to do it yourself. And I felt pretty useless, even though I wasn't. But as a woman, one with imposter syndrome, I felt like I wasn't doing much if I wasn't actually getting my hands dirty.
Good.
I did not take that decision lightly. I had been told for a very long time that you should do something of your own.
Even when you were speaking right now, there was different passions for each of them, and I think your experiences over time, I think what I really see resonate is that you enjoy getting deep and dirty into the work and sort of getting involved. And I think that's what I really felt from you when you were talking. So I just wanted to highlight that even for yourself.
Thank you.
Could you describe in one sentence, I'm going to say this because it's one sentence, could you describe in one sentence the difference between your experiences at Careem, Keep Trucking, and at Dukaan?
So if I were to use one sentence, I would say I was a doer at Careem, I was an enabler at Keep Trucking, and I was not ready or not equipped while I was at Dukaan.
Okay, that's tough. How do you feel you weren't ready? I mean, in retrospect, I think that's exactly what you've been speaking about. And the experiences, the whole thing is it's we all start working. I myself have worked at startups before, and then I consider myself a serial entrepreneur, right? But it's very different. I know it's very different. There's thousands of different challenges when you start up something. But from your experience, how did that trajectory change for you? One was sort of other people telling you, but you also having the passion, hey, I want to start something. But what else do you think made you, become an entrepreneur, actually start up your own business instead of just saying, hey, listen, I'm doing really well and building my career in startups?
So I wanted to do it because I wanted to have something that I built with myself. I felt like I was at a stage where I had gotten a lot and everything that I could from the companies that I'd worked with. And there was only a certain position that I could go to. I was always going to be reporting to somebody. And there was a way that I wanted to, grow my team. So I think my aim was that I wanted to build the best company for people to work at in Pakistan. That was my dream. My dream wasn't the most revenue. My dream wasn't all of that. But I realized one thing. I also thought, if I can get so passionate about Careem and Keep Trucking that are not even my ideas, think of how amazing it would be if it was my idea. Now, one of the things that I haven't mentioned a lot when I talk about Dukaan is I signed on to be a co-founder with Monas. But the idea was Monas's, the vision was Monas's. So I joined in and it was very attractive. He wanted to work with me. I wanted to work with him. And I kept saying, it seems too good to be true. How do you become COO and co-founder just like that, right? And the thing is,
did you guys know each other? Did you guys know each other? You guys met?
No, we didn't know each other at all. We'd heard of each other. And one of the things that we didn't do was spend enough time with each other. I think as co-founders, you really need to get to know each other. Where are your visions? What are your, what are you passionate about? So I feel the failure was that I was more focused on how am I going to hire the best people, train them, evolve them, and get them to be so happy that they treat my customers as kings. This is what I wanted to do. Yes, I wanted to enable the SMEs as well. But technically, this is where I feel maybe I was a bit naive. Maybe I was a bit rushed. So it's two things that I've learned from this experience, and it's a really short experience. And I have a lot of people, DMing me and saying you're a quitter because you quit in 4 months. But I feel that if the co-founders do not align on the vision and the strategy of even the product going forward, then it's going to be a toxic environment for the team, and they don't deserve it. And people don't change, and their visions and strategies, maybe they talk a lot, change. But I think 2 lessons that I would tell every entrepreneur is try to make sure that it's your idea or something you've built with somebody from scratch, or like you've started from scratch and built it together. And the other thing is spend a lot of time with your co-founder, potential co-founder. Go get locked away in a room and do a strategy session for a week. You'll know if you can work together or not. It is difficult. It's like, I never got married. And I felt like I was in a marriage, which is not to say that
a relationship.
Yeah, and which is not to say there was something wrong in Mona, so there was something wrong in me. It's just our personalities, our visions, and our strategies did not align. And I thought it was better to let him continue because it was his brainchild, his idea. And he'd been working on it a lot longer, and I'd come in. I mean, I announced a bit later, I came in a bit earlier. But there's a learning there. And if I were to do this again, I would do it about the things that I'm passionate about and the people, and work with people that I'm passionate about.
You take more time to sort of get to know somebody before jumping in, really.
A
I think
lot
that's what
more
I'm
time.
hearing. Absolutely. I understand that. I do get that. I think I say that to Halima, I say that with anybody we want to work with. I'm like, listen, it's about spending time. People can have thousands of ideas, but to execute, you need cohesion. And
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that's definitely part of any startup's journey. And I think you're very lucky to get that in your first two startups, where their vision aligned with what you were looking to do.
Yes.
And I think that's and I don't think it doesn't sound like it's really about you starting up something over here, more as, hey, did I find the team that I can work with, than anything
Yes.
else. That's
Yes. And
understandable. Go
I
on,
think I
sorry.
got I got very, very lucky because I got to work with Mudassir Sheikha, who will forever be my mentor. If you see, so one of the examples that I want to give is COVID happened and a lot of people were let go in a lot of companies. And you saw a lot of hate messages. The one company where there was no hate messages on LinkedIn was Careem. People were still thanking Careem. And how Mudassir was able to build that is enviable. I don't know how he's done it. I've worked with him. I wish I could emulate him one day. But really, and he's created all these entrepreneurs. And my dream maybe was to create something like that. So maybe it was too far-fetched, too soon.
What worked?
Careem,
What worked for you at Careem, right? Like, there was something you fell in love with, the startup culture, working under a specific team, working in a specific environment. There were so many things you fell in love with that built the next job
yes.
that you took on, and the next. What is it that you hope to carry on in your future?
Absolute and utter transparency, number one. Number two, walking the talk. So a lot of leaders have this talk that they do, but if you're not walking that talk, you're never ever going to be able to tell people to do what you want them to do. Anyway, you can now with Gen Z, it is so hard to get them to do what you want them to do with their stuff. But Mudassir was the first one in, last one out, consistency. And one of the other things that we had at Careem was the consistency of the mood, of the messaging of the management, right? They were very consistent. They had one line going. And so I took that away. I think as transparent as you can be and as honest as you can be, which is why I wrote a post about failure. And this is not the first one. There's some other ones that are on Facebook. This was on LinkedIn. And I met somebody the other day and I was being introduced and they said, this is Fatima Mazhar. She, brought Careem to Pakistan. She was the GM of Keep Trucking, blank face. And then they're like, oh, she recently left Dukan. And they're like, oh, the lady with the post. But it shows that when I announced that I was becoming, the COO and co-founder, I had probably 1/3 the views, 1/10 the likes, and, no comments.
Yeah.
So I realized that people resonate a lot more with failure and they like to read about it, not in a bad way, but they feel like they see themselves in you then. And so there's so many failures that I've had. You think this is the first one? There's so many. But yeah, so I think it's a
I think a bunch of things you said in there were really good advice, even for myself, my team, and just any entrepreneur out there, right? Building a transparent team, and also even just having consistent messaging that sort of resonates,
yes.
and you can say out to the team. Absolutely. I think we've gotten into the next question I'm really already wanting to talk about, but it's very rare in the corporate world to talk about failure, which is something you have done recently. And at Oraan, and you've also taken the time to highlight it. Clearly, you've gone viral with it. At Oraan, we're trying to create a space where people can have these conversations that are often hushed up. And you already talked about the fact that it was tough and why you wanted to talk about failure, because you wanted to be transparent, and that's the one thing that you learned, right? What is I'm going to ask this uncomfortable question, but what made you feel that you were not succeeding in that role as founder or CEO?
So I think I've had this problem since I started my career, where, and this is really bad, but sometimes I feel like I'm right. And when I believe I'm right, it is very hard for me to take anyone else's opinion on it. But it's not like everything that you say is right. I am very open to criticism, feedback, and I say yes to a lot of things. But when I believe that something is right, it's right. So I've had arguments and I've, burned some bridges over my inability to give in. And as I've aged, that's gotten bigger. So the failure was an inability to see eye to eye. And I blame myself a lot I blame myself, and I think it's a failure, to buy into somebody else's vision, to buy into somebody else's strategy. Maybe I should have been more patient. Maybe I should have been more, laid back and thought that somebody else could be right for a change as well. The only thing is, execution is my thing. I was called the chief execution officer by Mudassir a couple of times because execution is what I do. You give me anything crazy, and if I buy into it, and again, I'm saying if I buy into it, I will take whatever it takes to execute it. So I think my failure was I was not patient. I was not very understanding, and I really believed that I was right. So this personality trait has landed me in trouble before. It's going to land me in trouble again.
So honestly, that's super honest. This is the kind of conversations we want to have, right? It is, how can you self-reflect and really think about your own weaknesses and sort of talk about it in public? Because the fact is, a lot of us are like that. Egos come in the way all the time when it comes to work. The more you've accomplished, the harder it is. And I know that I'm definitely guilty of the same. And there are times when I won't even know it. It's how do you step back from it? Where do you stop? And I'm glad you brought that up, because I definitely think it's something that our audience across the board need to think about when they're looking and self-reflecting and figuring out what to do next. So thank you. I think I'm gonna skip the next one, but I'm gonna ask, what advice would you give our female founders if we were to wrap this up? You've talked about a lot of great things, yeah.
Believe in yourself. Quiet down the outside noise. Do not think of yourself as a woman. An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur, whether it's a woman or a man. If you think you're a woman entrepreneur, you're always going to have that complex. Have a great support system and a set of allies in the industry. And please, 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 be very transparent with your teams and be very transparent with everyone about money, because money is something that we are really scared to talk about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. There was a lot of great advice packed into a very short sentence. So thank you. Is there anything, last second thing that you want to say?
Yes, I am so proud of Oraan. They've not asked me to say this. I actually found out about Oraan through an investor that I was talking to recently. And I was talking about women-led startups, and they'd heard about it. And I've been researching and stalking them because I am so proud of them. And one day, I wish they do all my saving planning for me.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Fatima. That was really nice.